Brakat Yahweh, Brakat Yahushai, Brakat Yahweh, Brakat Yahushai, Brakat Yahweh, Brakat Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rachat Dash. That belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to the hopefully elect out there, you Akim to Sadakim, that did this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. On the Pre-Shaman, this week's topic is going to be entitled Spiritual Power is Out There. Spiritual power is out there. Now, what's inspiring this lesson was a video. Well, initially I was watching the Candace Owen podcast, and she had mentioned, well, the person replacing her had mentioned, there's a podcast called the Telepathy Tapes. Okay, and I sent it to brothers. I recommend you brothers check that out. It's a 10-episode podcast. I'm still on episode 2, but with the Telepathy Tapes, it's pretty much. So you always in history had savants, right? These autistic kids. And they call them savants because they will do things that's like kind of outer worldly. I'll give you an example. Like some of these autistic kids could speak a language they never even heard of, all right, without even being taught it, or play piano perfectly with no lessons, or some of them even read hieroglyphs, and they delved even deeper into these kids that can't control. You know those when they be like, oh, they can't really talk and shit, like they really fucked up in that way, super autistic, that some of them were able to read minds, like read the minds of those like close to them. And so this lady, she's going and she's researching this shit, and she's traveling all over the like all over, right? The first person she did was some Jake in Mexico, this daughter. And then she went to a son, some Elamite, and they would do things like, you know, put these kids in other rooms and shit, or blindfold them, and they'll ask them, what is your mom seeing? And they write it down, whether it be words, color. They did all these types of tests, and it pretty much proved straight up that there's telepathy there. And it was very interesting because the Indian one, Elamite, he was like, he didn't even know he had a body. He thought everybody was just using their mind to communicate. And then they had to break it down to him that you're in a body, and this is how you move your fingers, and this is touch and all that type of stuff. And a lot of them say, like these amongst these autistic kids, he said they call them I forgot the word they use, spellers or some shit like that, because that's how they communicate. They have to use devices and stuff like that because they can't speak verbally. And they was pretty much saying that we all able to do this, you know. And some of like which is talk via the mind and read each other's minds and shit like that, and that some of them are even able to see spirits. So that made me think about how spiritual power, reading somebody's mind and all that, it's crazy how the Lord did that, because the Lord gave them the ability to read minds, but they can't communicate to us. That's heavy, you know what I'm saying? The works of the Lord. But we've been saying that telepathy, and by the way, these the CIA, all these different scientists and shit in different agencies of Esau, all right, guess what? They study these people. They capture them and do all sorts of tests, and all that shit is going on in secret. Because Esau's whole thing, he wants to be like the Most High and mimic the stuff that the angels and the Lord do. And telepathy is one of that, okay? This is the book of Ecclesiasticus, book of Sirach, chapter 16, verse 27. It says, he garnished his works forever, and in his hands are the chief of them unto all generation. Now these are going into this scripture right here is going into the angels. It says, they neither labor nor are weary nor cease from their works. So what is that going into? That's going into the angels. They did everything with their mind. They didn't do it via labor. When we go in the book of Genesis, and Yahushua and the angels were creating everything, it was all let this be done, let that be. It was just done via the mind. And Esau studies a lot of shit, and they try to mimic these things on the left hand. How so? That using that mark of the beast, the RFID microchip, giving people back the ability to move, all right, you know, trigger certain things in their brain, but ultimately that Neuralink device, or whatever you want to call it, will be linked to like maybe your smart car, where you're driving your car with your mind via that chip hooked up to you. But that's Esau again mimicking it, because we're gonna do that without any chip in us or none of that shit. You know, we're just gonna be able to tap into these different elements and control things with our mind. Not every single brother, but the Most High is gonna gift a lot of brothers with spiritual power. Okay? And that's what's going to bring a lot of more people in. All right? The book of Isaiah chapter 59 verse 19 says, so shall they fear the name of the Lord from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in a flood, meaning like when Esau's going to roll upon us, it says the spirit of the Lord Yahweh B'Shem Yahshua shall lift up a standard against him, whether that be an angel intervening or spiritual power. And it could be all sorts of spiritual power. Men of the Lord have done great things, you know. I mean, look at you read about Shamgar, you know, fucking up 600 individuals with an ox goad, I believe. All right, what Samson did with the jawbone of an ass. King David slaying thousands of men. Can you imagine shooting a basketball shot and getting 1,000 shots in a row? So King David killed thousands of men, all right, and he didn't get killed. So that's a perfect record, you know. So that's spiritual power in play right there. Leaping walls, doing all these types of crazy shit, you know, making it turn into a sling and a stone into like pretty much a modern day bullet. All right, you have to be tapped into the spirit to do that, and that all circles back to faith. And I keep harping on this because this is what the Apostle Paul said, and it resonated me for years. He said, spiritual power is nothing but the Lord turning up your faith. And I think that's a very well way to word it, because that's all that is. Because when you watch the thing that I'm talking about, the telepathy tapes, she said the Issacharite one, when she went with the Issacharite one said, I could only do it, basically see what her mom is seeing and all that, if you believe. She said it only works if you believe. And I was just like, yo, that's straight out the scriptures. In fact, I'm gonna go ahead and read that. This is the book of Matthew's. Basically, you gotta have faith. And Esau, he don't got no fucking faith, man. You know, in fact, she's with an Edomite, and he's a cameraman, and he's still like, I think this makes me believe more in science and all. Like, man, if that should have proved to you that there's a Most High. They're telling you, like, you know, they're able to share consciousness and all this type of stuff, and it's heavy. You know, you might say, well, if they know all that, how come they don't know? How come they're not out there prophesying and using the spellers and letting them know which nations or which? Well, guess what? Amos 3:7. Just because the Most High had them tap into that, being able to read minds, the Most High ain't gonna make them know his secrets and his mysteries. You see what I'm saying? Some of them do. Some of them die. I went to heaven, I saw angels and they were black men. So the Most High could do certain things, but he also put limits on certain things. But in the kingdom of heaven, we're going to be fully faith tapped into that spiritual power. But before that, the Yahushua said, y'all going to have power. Matthew 9:19 says, and Yahushua arose and followed him, and so did his disciples. And behold, a woman which was diseased with an issue of blood 12 years came behind him and touched the hem of his garment. And I think another gospel said Yahushua felt that virtue leave me, like that faith. It says, for she said within herself, within her mind, if I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole. So she said this in her mind. But Yahushua turned him about, and when he saw her, he said, daughter, be of good comfort. Thy faith hath made thee whole. So Yahushua, just from touching her garment, was connected to her and read her mind. And then, without even asking, verbally, turned around and said, look, your faith has made you whole. So you believe. That's that spiritual part, the faith factor. And the woman was made whole from that hour. See that? So it's called the Telepathy Tapes. It's a 10-episode podcast, you know. You watch it, you know, draw your own conclusion. Matthew 9:28 says, and when he was come into the house, the blind men came to him. And Yahushua said unto them, believe ye that I am able to do this? So you believe I'm able to heal you? They said unto him, yea, Lord. So they truly believed. Then touched he their eyes, saying, according to your faith be it unto you. And their eyes were opened. And Yahushua straightly charged them, saying, see that no man know it. And that's very hard to keep secret. You know, you're able to see again and not tell anybody about it. So when Yahweh Shah said that it was a bit of reverse psychology, that, you know, that word could spread, you know. But they when they were departed, spread abroad his fame in all that country. So again, Yahweh Shah reading minds. He knew that it was going to do that. You know what I'm saying? He knew that that's how that was going to play out. And Yahweh Shah, before he went up, this is what he told the disciples. He said unto them, it is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power, but ye shall receive power after that the Holy Spirit is come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria and unto the uttermost part of the world. So that's talking about reincarnation, but the Lord said you're going to receive power, and the apostles did receive power. Men of the Lord did receive power, and there's nothing new under the sun. Lord willing, we men of the Lord, we're going to be receiving power. And this is a point too, that you're seeing that the Lord already give certain individuals some sort of that spiritual power. Whether it's these autistic kids that's able to see spirits, read minds, all right? Even some of these animals have spiritual power, able to regrow limbs and shit like that, you know? Live hundreds of years. They had this shark that was like 500 years old. So it's there. It's there. It's just the Most High is gonna, again, make us tap into it. Here's an account. Not because we got to remember too that Yahweh Shah walked on water, but also Peter did. And he didn't start falling until he started doubting. That faith started to go. And that instant, that scenario was inspired. The Matrix, the movie The Matrix, the first one, grew inspiration for that, because when Morpheus was telling Neo, look, you could jump across this building. You just got to believe you could do it. Believe that you in the Matrix, you could control this shit. And he was jumping it, and he was doing it, and then he started to look down and doubt, like, holy shit, I'm really, and he started to fall into the Matrix. He started to fall again. They got that from this something that actually happened in real life with Yahweh Shah and Peter. So if Peter was able to walk on water, Yahweh Shah was able to walk on water. Hey man, the Lord said, whatever I do, y'all gonna do greater. So we're gonna see some really epic stuff. We're going to be able to understand, okay, that's spiritual power. Most of the world ain't going to get it, but a lot of believers are going to say, these guys are men of the Lord. Holy shit. Acts 14:9 says, the same heard Paul speak, who steadfastly beholding him and perceiving that he had faith to be healed. So Paul was looking at him and perceived that he has faith. This guy believe. Said with a loud voice, stand upright on thy feet. And he leaped and walked. And so that's just pure faith. There was no ointment needed. There was no, because, you know, if you put ointment, if you put this, you put that, then you're not going to give credit to the Lord. That was just fully 100% the Most High saying, that crippled demon, get off of him. Walk. And he walked, man. But he had to believe. Just like that, just like the lady said, the only reason I'm able to see what my mom is seeing and do all this shit that she's doing, all right, is because she believed. You know what I'm saying? So you got to believe. It says, and when the people saw what Paul had done, they lifted up their voices, saying in the speech of Laconia, the gods are come down to us in the likeness of men. So that was just bugged out Jakes. Mixing, you know, Greek philosophy with scriptures. That was their interpretation, that Paul was some sort of demigod. I mean, we are gods, but like not like on some, you know, what they were thinking, you know. But it shows you that even after the 12 had passed, the Apostle Paul, who was told directly from Yahweh Shah, well, not passed away, but, you know, since I'm just saying, outside of the 12 also, you had men that believed on Yahweh Shah and called on his name and did great works and great miracles. All right, so spiritual power is just that. It's the Most High letting you tap in that faith and bringing that shit to a whole nother level. And we're seeing that it's already here on earth, but you gotta believe. You know, you watch that podcast, I'm like, It makes sense, you know. Yahushua did it. There's nothing impossible with the Most High. But if I need a scientific, it's still being denounced by scientific bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Those people like that, you clearly can't orchestrate shit with these people that they can't form sentences. They got to use these things. So for you to run some sort of elaborate scheme with them, that's just like, it's asinine. It's definitely what they saying checks out. You know what I'm saying? Man, we even had accounts where Yahushua was had an animal communicate to a man, Balaam. And what would the animal see? In spirits. So these things there's accounts of them in the scriptures. It's not some far-fetched radical thing. You know what I'm saying? But you have to be a spiritual individual, which we are, to receive it, man. So Lord willing, we all of that ilk, and the Lord will bless us with that spiritual power and turn up our faith in that day and deliver us. With that, I'm going to give all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushua, Ba'ashim Rachak that belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone True Well. Salutations to hopefully elect that day. You Akim to Zadakim that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. Shalom.